I was thinking somebody was talking, I think Brother Harold, about how the Lord said He's going to come back.
Yeah.
And one thing that we forget sometimes is that the Word says that the righteous is scarcely going to be saved.
Yes, it is.
And I always heard that growing up, that meant by the skin of our teeth, right? And we've done everything that we know to do. We've lived the best way that we can live, but we've held on to His grace and to His mercy.
Yeah.
Right? So if the righteous is scarcely going to be saved, the world has a lot to worry about.
Yeah.
They don't have no hope in Jesus, and they're not holding on to Him, and they're not putting their thoughts and affections where they need to be. It's easy for us to get sidetracked.
Look at the Lord bless you,
Sister
God.
Jacob was talking about, he was talking about Sister Tasha being healed of cancer.
Yeah.
And everything that she went through up to that point to where she found out that she had the cancer. She lost her job. She lost her house. She started losing things, and then all of a sudden, she has cancer, right? And I'm not here to talk about how great that I think that she is, but how great that I think God is. Right? But she had a choice in this situation.
Yeah.
She could have let her problem start to define her relationship with God. She could have let her problem start to steal her praise, and steal her worship. And she could have said, you know what? I've tried that serving God thing. I've tried that praying thing. I've tried that going to church thing. And look at what happened, and I'm not going to do it no more. Right? She could have done that. And it probably would have been easy to do. It would have been easy for her to say that I've served God and it still happens, so what's the point? What's the point of going to church? What's the point of praying? What's the point of worshiping? What's the point of being saved? And the devil was probably in her ear the whole time saying all of those things. I don't know if he was or not, but I just know what kind of devil we fight against. And he probably was, right? So she had a decision to make. She could have went back and she could have came out here after service and sat on her hands. And said, I'm not going to praise you no more until you heal me. I'm not going to praise you no more until you work this out. I'm not going to praise you no more until you answer my prayer. And that's where a lot of people start to get in their spiritual journey, right? They forget about everything that God's done for them in the past. When those prayers have been answered, we want to get out here sometimes and say, I'm not making fun of anybody, okay? I'm not. But sometimes we get out here and say, I got to praise you. Lord did this. And then we sit down.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
There you go.
Let's do it. Instead of getting out here and really giving Him the praise. When we've got a need before we call out, we were talking about this earlier. When we've got a need before we're getting in the mindset, we'll start to cry out, oh God, I need you to hear my prayer. I need you to work it. And then He answers the prayer, and we say, "Got to praise you." And then we say, "What about getting out here and saying, Lord, every single one of us can get out here and really worship Him for the things that He's done. And really worship Him for every time that He's moved. Right? Why does He got to do it one more time before we worship Him? Why does He got to do it one more time before we give Him the praise? I look at my life just 3 years ago. Just 3 years ago when I was a different person. Right? Some of you can look at your life 6 months ago and you was a different person. Some of you can look at your life 1 month ago and you were a different person. But He keeps pouring into you. He keeps blessing you. Worship Him, to glorify Him, to magnify His presence. And I noticed that every time that I've had a problem in my life, when I sat back and I thought about that problem and I let that problem start to define me and start to define my praise and worship, I had to be in that for a whole lot longer, right? If it started to separate me from God, if it started to separate my prayer life, I had to be in that a whole lot longer. And I know it wasn't easy for Sister Tasha to come out here every single time. And it's not easy for you to come out here every single time either. I know it's not. Because you go to those chemo treatments and you come out here and you put on and you smile, right? But I know sometimes you're just sick, aren't you? But you're coming out here and you're being faithful to God because you know the relationship that you have with Him, right?
Praise the Lord. Every Lord.
Last night we was at Hope and Healing and I saw something that maybe I never saw before.
There you go.
We get out here and sometimes we expect God to move in our times, right? We expect Him to answer our prayers our way, right? Instead of doing it His way. And there's been times in my life when I had this need and I was like, God, I've been faithful, I've prayed, I've worshipped, I've read my Bible. I've done everything that I know to do and you're still not moving. Why aren't you moving? Right? So that He can get the praise. So that He can get the glory. And so that He can get the honor. Because if He did it on my time, because of what I've done, because of my faithfulness, then I would have earned that, right? And I can have a hand in that. I can say, look what I helped God do. Right? But when He does it His way, based on the fact that He wants to do it, because He loved you enough to heal you, because He loved you enough to take care of that cancer, or to give you enough strength to come to church tonight, we can know that it was Him that moved, right? Not because I had anything in this world to do with it, right? And then we can give Him the honor. Sometimes we get over and we think that we had a hand in doing something that the Lord's done, and maybe He won't get the praise and the honor and the glory that He deserves out of it. But when we really know that it was Him, when we really know that it was His faithfulness, that He was the one that wanted to do it, then we can stand on it and know that God has done this for us. We were talking about something earlier today. Me and Brother Scott, we talked on the phone quite a bit. And then we go into this tent revival, right? And I've been wanting to get up there, but I've had other obligations and there's things that I haven't been able to just put aside in order to go up there. And I'm hoping to go tomorrow night, and I hope that the Lord really shows up and shows out for people. But we started talking about the Azusa Street revival. Right? When this great Holy Ghost move that came across this whole nation. Right? It started with just a couple people. And the holiness religion started from the Azusa Street revival. At least that's how I understand it. And it was because they let it spread, and they let it spread, and they let it spread. But in the middle of this revival, it wasn't just people going out there and getting renewed and getting the Holy Ghost. They were bringing people out there and they were being healed. Right? They were bringing out people that couldn't walk, and they were sitting in front of them, and they were praying, and they had their hands up, and they were talking to God, and they were laying hands on them, and they were being healed instantly. Right? There were people that had other problems. Maybe they couldn't see, and God opened up the blind eyes. He opened up the deaf ears. And we started talking about this thing. We've seen a lot of work in this church. We've seen God do a lot of wonderful things in this church. Nobody can stand against and say that God didn't have anything to do with it. But we're only scratching the surface. We're only scratching the surface. There's so much more that's available. There's so much more healing. There's so much more power. There's so much more work that He can do. If we just let Him do it and we align ourselves with where we need to go. We get ourselves lined up with where we need to be. And you won't be able to keep people out of this church. Right? Because when people start hearing about people coming in wheelchairs, getting up and walking around, blind eyes being open, there's going to be lines outside the doors of the churches where that's happening because people are going to want what God's doing there. But whose fault is it that we're not there? It's all of us, right? Now, that's not something I'm saying to bring you down spiritually, right? That's something I'm saying to give you something to strive for, to push a little bit harder, to pray a little bit harder, to worship a little bit more, to live a little bit closer to the foot of the cross, right? To clean up the flesh and to get into the spiritual things. Because if I'm always walking around in the flesh, sure, God's going to be faithful, and He's going to bless me, and He's going to show me where I need to move up. But if I don't start moving up to those He doesn't have any responsibility to let me have any more than what He's already given me, right? But if I start aligning myself with what He shows me spiritually, when He shows me how He wants me to be, how He wants me to walk, how He wants me to live, and I start aligning myself to that, and I start getting my prayer life right, pretty soon I'm going to start having more and more and more power of God in my life, right? But when I sit back and I say, because you haven't done this, or I've been guilty of this one right here, I'll praise you, kid. Anybody else ever said that one? I'll praise you, kid. Lord, if you work this out for me, then I'm going to praise you. Lord, if you work this out for me, I'll tell people about it. Lord, if you work this out for me, I'm going to testify about it. Lord, if you work this out for me, then I'm going to do it. Right? What about what He's already done already? What about the sacrifice in your life? What about every person that's already been faithful? Has He already done enough where we don't have a heart that says, Lord, what more can I do? How much more? His faithfulness, right? Out of His great love. We can't get in this position where we think, Lord, one more thing, I'm going to praise you. One more thing. Because He's been so faithful already. He's been so faithful, right? I know I talk about praise and I talk about worship so much. But you know why? Because I want us to go to a whole other level. I want to see people walking in this church. I want to see their spirit just be refilled. Walk in and know you have to do nothing, but they can walk in and just feel the presence of the Lord. Yes, I know. Often how these altars have been prayed over. The Spirit has been passed in this church. Yes, amen. And I want to see people walk in here and be healed. Amen. I don't want to see this man have to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair because I didn't do my part. I don't want to see people. I don't want to see you have to live with going to chemo every week or however often it is for the rest of your life. Because I didn't pray enough. Because I wasn't faithful enough, right? Doesn't it impress with us? Because the Word says that Jesus said that He was going to send us something. That we'll be able to have the signs in our life. That we'll be able to do the things that He did. Even more. Even more. Right? Even greater works. I want that in my life. But I don't want it just in my life. I want it in your life. And everybody else in this church. Because when we get to that position, we won't have to tell people about the sort of thing. We won't have to tell people about anything. Because the fire will burn so hot and so strong in this altar that people will drive by and feel the Holy Ghost when they drive by. And they'll worship Him, right? They'll worship Him. They'll want to worship Him. I'm tired of seeing people not getting what they need from the Lord. I'm tired. It's not a God's faithfulness problem. It's not. No. It's not. It's our faithfulness problem. And I'm not down on you. I'm encouraging you. I want you to just want your heart to burn with a desire to get over into the hands of the Lord when He can use you, right? Don't you want those signs? Don't you want those testimonies where you can go to a church service and God can be healing in your heart one day and He leads you to lay hands on this man. And the power of God hits him so strong that he stands up from that chair and runs out and starts praising the Lord. I want it for this church. I want it for this church. And I want it for that man. I want it for her. I want it for all of us. I want those testimonies. I want my heart to be bubbling over every time that I come in here to just praise and to just worship and to just love the Lord. If He never does anything else for me my whole life, I'm going to be far behind my praising and I'm going to be far behind my worship. I've seen so many great works here, and I'm not down on anything that the Lord's done here. I promise. I'm actually excited about what He's done here. I'm excited about how we praise. I'm excited about how we worship. We're back in and says, you know what, you're still my child.
Thank you.
Somebody posted something, I think it was Brother Josh. He said, the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen is eyes that see the light after they've been in darkness. Don't you think that's beautiful? You know why I think it's so beautiful? Because I remember what it feels like to not have hope. I remember what it feels like to be walking around. I remember what it feels like to be walking around trying to feel my way. And all of a sudden that light shined down and I could see exactly who my father was. And I could see exactly Just like that blind man that was born, he was born blind, and the disciples born blind?
Right.
Was it his or his parents? Right? Because they believed when people had an infirmity like that, that it was because of some sin that caused them to be born that way. And Jesus said it wasn't nobody's fault. He was born this way so that the glory of God could be seen. Right? There's people that come in here and God's trying to use people so that they can be healed, so that the glory of God can be seen. But are we doing our part? Are we doing our part to get them over into the kingdom of God? Are we living in the way that we need to live so that they can be healed? Are we doing our part? I want to see it. I want to experience it. I want a fire burn so strong or something that people can feel it from outside the walls of this church. If you really want it, you're going to do what it takes in order to get it. We can talk about how we want more God. We can talk about how we want to see the signs. We can talk about how we want to see our children come in. We can talk about how we want to see people be healed. But until we start putting ourselves in the position in order to make those things into a reality, do we really want it? Or do we just like talking about it? Let's really want it. Let's go after this thing. Let's get as much God in our lives as we can possibly get, right? The devil will try to distract us. He'll try to discourage us from it. And he'll think, well, you may pray this whole week long, right? You may do everything that I told you to do for a week. And the devil will say, well, nothing's happened yet. It's not going to happen, right? But what if it was the next time you prayed? What if it was that next time that you came to church and you put your hands up, that heaven came down for you in the middle of your problem, in the middle of your situation? What if the next person that you laid hands on was the one that got healed? Just as he was being waited. Just as he prayed. Well, that's all.